Amen. Mayor Pro Tem, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, we're going to have the approval of the minutes of September 23, 2024 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it. Approval of the agenda for October the 14th, 2024 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it. We have public comments, and the way the public comments work, we will ask you to come forward as I read your name. You come up, give us your name and your home address. You will have 2 minutes to speak on your topic, and we're pretty big sticklers for the 2 minutes, so don't feel embarrassed if you go a little longer. So with that being said, LaRaven Twitty.
LaRaven Twitty, 201 Samara Street. The homosexual parades. This is what happens. There's sexual music, men in underwear, dancing in front of kids under 12 years old. This is evil. Men in bras, men kissing other men, women in bras and underwear, kids walking around watching within the parade. Thank God for Ed Davis, former LAPD chief in June 28, 1970, LA, who spoke against the homosexual parade, just like me. Why is the city council member so cowardice? Stand in Jesus' name for what's right. This needs to stop, or God's judgment will come, and it will be devastating. Repent and turn to Jesus.
Thank you, Ms. Twitty. We have Jason Spencer.
Hi, Jason Spencer, 206 Sharon Drive. I know a few of you have heard this before, but please bear with me. There's a concert coming up. Siren is hosting a concert this weekend. I want to make sure everybody knows. It's a blues singer named Adia Victoria. She is from Spartanburg. Her mom lived on the west side. Her grandparents lived in Campobello. She went to the Advent School in John B. White through about the 6th grade, and then when she switched to public school, I think that's where a lot of the poetry and songwriting began. She's headlining a Get Out the Vote concert for us Saturday night at Harvest Park. Moody Black, spoken word artist Moody Black is opening, and so is Remedy 58. They were the Chapman Center's Battle of the Band winner last year. And city's a sponsor, so we appreciate that. We were able to send Tony Tanner, who works with us, to a cultural organizing training at the Highlander Center earlier this year. And so he'll be doing a cultural organizing training with some students at Monarch while we're setting up the stage and the lights and the sound and everything, which is kind of an immersive experience. You know, it's using art to promote policies that affect, that can benefit historically disadvantaged communities. And as soon as that's over, she'll do her sound check. Doors open for the public at 6, shows at 7, and tickets are live. So hope to see you all there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Item 6, we have a presentation of a proclamation declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we have Project Rest that's going to come down and join us and join me. Make your way around. Keep coming. Don't be shy. So, I want to read off the proclamation, then we'll have a few pictures, but as you can see, Project Rest is right here with us. City of Spartanburg, South Carolina proclamation, whereas Project Rest's mission is to address the impact of domestic violence by providing quality service to those affected and to create social change through education, training, and activism. Whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month seeks to bring attention to the fact that in the United States, more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence annually, and intimate partner violence account for more than 15% of all violent crimes. Whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an opportunity for our entire community to acknowledge the pain that victims of domestic violence experience, while showing the victims that they are not alone in their experience. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Months offer an opportunity to bring awareness to this crime while educating our community on how domestic violence can be prevented. Whereas Project REST knows there are victims of domestic violence throughout Spartanburg County, the city of Spartanburg, and the United States from all age groups, ethnic groups, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Whereas the Spartanburg City Council thanks Project REST for the empowering and supporting domestic violence survivors and working to prevent domestic violence in Spartanburg. Now, therefore, I, Jerome Rice Jr., by the virtue and the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Spartanburg, and on behalf of my fellow city council members, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Spartanburg to be affixed this 14th day of October 2024. So again, the month of October 2024, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you. Thank you. Is everyone's holding their hand out? Thank you. No, seriously, thank you all. Quick. No, Tammy's not going to understand anywhere else.
Go Vikings.
There is a video that will be released. It's been released, okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you. I will make sure they get it all to see my cameo. Item 7, award the bid for the Delray Drive Drainage Culvert Repair. Presenter, Mr. Jay Squires, Public Works Director.
Mayor, Council, staff received bids for the emergency repair of a drainage culvert on Delray Drive. The culvert and junction box were compromised during the storm event that happened on September 27th. We think that the water overtopped the road and washed the pipe and the junction box out of placement. The project consists of repair, installation of a 6-foot by 6-foot by 10-foot concrete junction box, installation of a 36 by 18 or 36-inch and 18-inch concrete pipe, and backfill with structural material. One bid was received from HRH Engineering Services for $91,484. Staff has reviewed the bids and the emergency on-call contractor. Based on the review, staff has determined that HRH Engineering Services, LLC, is responsive low bidder. It is anticipated it will take approximately 7 days to complete the project. Contractor will utilize a detour route during the construction phase. Staff is asking council to allow us to accept the bids and authorize city manager to enter into a contract with HRH Engineering LLC for the completion of the project. The $91,484 will be paid from the stormwater construction account. Staff will coordinate with FEMA to request reimbursement for the repair. And I think I have a little thing over here, but you can kind of see what's going on there with, that is a huge, that is a very large junction box. So what it's doing is actually, it's kind of holding up the road on Delray. So we wanted to make sure that we go ahead and do this emergency repair so that the road and those other, utilities are not compromised. So we're asking council to accept the bid and enter into a contract. I'll entertain any questions, please.
Any questions of Mr. Squires? Yes,
Mr. Mayor, Jay, you answered most of my questions in your presentation, but Is this the only significant damage we had to our stormwater infrastructure?
So what we're doing now, we're doing an evaluation of all of our culverts and bridges. Essentially, you only own 2 bridges, really outright bridges. That's the one on South Liberty Street and the Railroad Bridge on Glendale Avenue. So the one on South Liberty Street, we're still looking at that one as well, because there was a recent inspection done by DOT with that.
Well, we don't own the one that, is it where Canterbury comes
The
in?
one at Sylvan, we own that one on Sylvan too. It's sort of a smaller bridge.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that one has always bothered me because it's the last of the legacy bridges that doesn't really have significant arm rails or guide rails and that kind of thing.
We're looking at all of them because, right, I'm gonna be honest with you, now is the time to look at it because there is some FEMA dollars to be reimbursed. So we're doing an actual on all of our infrastructure, particularly with stormwater and culverts and bridges and so forth.
I'd take a look at that bridge because I think the storm may have damaged that bridge. I'm sure you can find it.
Yes, sir.
So,
No, good.
I will just check with one of mine that I have an issue, but I'll talk with you later about it.
Good. Thank you. So we need a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the bid for Delray Drive.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it, Mr. Squires. Thank you, sir. A resolution pursuant to Section 4-1-170C Code of South Carolina 1976 as amended, consent to the placement of certain properties within the corporate limitation of the city of Spartanburg and joint industrial and business park of Spartanburg and Cherokee County. Mr. Kohler, city attorney.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is a little bit of housekeeping,
Right.
some cleanup stuff. As you might recall, back in 2018, the city and the county partnered with another county to create a special tax district called the Downtown Development District. That enables us to use some tax funds to promote economic development here in the city. In anticipation of the building of the stadium and all the surrounding infrastructure, back in June, we moved several parcels into that special district. We'll be able to take that tax money and support the economic development. This is cleanup. These are about 60 parcels that need to still be moved in. They are newly identified parcels and/or sub-children. Sometimes a parcel gets subdivided, so we move the sub-parcel in. So the first resolution is to take existing parcels here in the city, and they will be moved into the Downtown Development District, and then we can use that money for economic development purposes. It's important to understand that the taxpayer, there's no effect. They don't even know the difference between paying a property tax and paying a fee in lieu of tax into the Downtown Development District. It's all the same to them. It just allows the city and the county to partner to use some of the funds to support our economic growth. So the first resolution, if you don't have any questions, would be a motion, a second, and a vote to move those parcels identified in my resolution into the Downtown Development District.
Okay, so we're just voting on A, and then we'll go back to B.
Yeah, if we could, it
Okay.
would be probably cleaner to do it
What's the
that way.
difference between?
That was gonna be my next question, Mr.
So
Councilman
B, I'll
Ryan.
tell you, is another district we've created. We'll get to that one in a second. As part of the development of the stadium and all the surrounding infrastructure, we've identified a handful of parcels, about 7 or 8. They will be moved into a new county park that has been created by the city, county, and a partner county, Cherokee County. And those 8 or 9 parcels will be put in what I'm calling it the stadium park. Same thing, it's just another multi-county industrial park. That's a state law supported program we've used in the city for decades to support economic growth. So 2 parks. The first resolution is to move about 50 parcels into the Downtown Development District. And the second resolution in front of you is to move a handful of parcels into the stadium park. Those parcels are more closely attuned and related to the development of the stadium and its surrounding infrastructure. It's the Herald Journal parcel, it's where City Hall currently is, it's the lot next to City Hall. A lot of those parcels are owned by the developers of the stadium, if that makes sense.
So, go, Mr.
Obviously,
Councilman
I'm
Ryan.
recusing myself from B.
Right.
I need to recuse myself from A.
I don't think you do. You can out of an abundance of caution, but I think as it
Without
relates
knowing
to,
exactly which parcels it is,
And I think we need to be clear on exactly which parcels, that's, when we say a handful, that's, that's
If you
what,
want to take up A, it's 54 parcels.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't.
The ethics question only arises if you think you will derive an economic benefit from your vote, you should recuse yourself.
Just to be safe.
The general I think that's probably appropriate.
And just one more point, Mr. Mayor, for the record, is all of this is consistent with the prior actions related to the stadium financing and development. There's no change in any of the terms or the flow of funds. What happens is over time, parcels split, or there's a change associated with a parcel, and we needed to catch up for all of the hundreds of parcels that are involved in the downtown district. We needed to catch up action, so to clean it up so that it's accurate as of today.
and I know, and I just pulled it up, and of course, we have all the parcels here as it is written out. And I guess we don't need to name them all. Let's just go, any other question of A? Let's go ahead and, do I hear a motion on A, resolution A?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve Resolution A as read.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? And of course, we have Councilman Rain recusing himself from the vote. B, the same verbiage, and Mr. Kohler will present the same as he's already explained, the number of parcels, exactly how many parcels?
These parcels are, just for the record, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 parcels. And I can tell you, I've made a little map. We didn't get it into the PowerPoint presentation, but the parcels essentially are the stadium itself parcel,
Right.
the former Herald Journal lot across the street from the current City Hall, the current City Hall parcel, the parking lot behind the current City Hall parcel, the parking lot that fronts the current City Hall. And then, there's one other one. No, that's all of them, and there are sub-parcels as part of those larger parcels. So these are parcels that are directly connected with the development of the stadium and the infrastructure surrounding the stadium. So they will go into the new stadium park, which is a multi-county industrial park as well.
And you keep referencing the lot behind City Hall. You mean the lot that's sort of in between the old City Hall and the new city offices where you park?
That's correct. That's included.
Any other questions of Mr. Kohler? I entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the resolution as presented for the replacement of these lots.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it.
One recusal.
Yes, along with Councilman Rain. Not voting. C, a resolution clarifying one unit as an abandoned building site pursuant to South Carolina Abandoned Building Revitalization Act, Title 12, Chapter 65, Section 12-67-100 of South Carolina Code of Law 1976, as amended regarding the property located at 305 North Church Street, City of Spartanburg, Spartanburg County. Tax map 7-16-06-043.00. Presenter, Mr. Kohler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So this parcel, you'll recall, it's, I describe it as kitty corner to the Domino's Pizza on the corner of Church and East Daniel Morgan. It has been an abandoned building for a very long time, certainly longer than the 5 years that's required by the state statute. The developers have expressed an interest in redeveloping it, and so they've asked the city to certify it as abandoned. What we do is verify that there's been no economic use of that building for 5 years, which there hasn't been, and declare that it's been abandoned. They will then invest money to redevelop it. I understand it's about a $5 million investment for a 2-story bank for, I think it's Fidelity Bank. And then they will be able to recoup some of their reconstruction costs through state income tax credits, not property tax. So it has no effect on our city revenue. It will enable them to recoup some of their costs through a state economic benefit plan that gives them back some tax credits.
And Bob, or this may be a question for Chris, but the process has gone, I mean, the bank has gone through the design and review process successfully, and so they're shovel-ready?
Yes.
Project?
Yes, I believe they'll be moving to construction pretty soon.
Great.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to thank Fidelity Bank for their investment
Yeah.
in downtown. That's
Really.
been an empty building for, gosh, probably 20 years plus.
Yep.
So I think it'll be a nice new addition to our downtown.
Very important intersection there as well, and I love the reference to Kitty Corner. Some of the folks that may remember Kitty Corner, I see Jamie's giggling and Ruth. So, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve Revolution C as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any that opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Colon. Appreciate it. Item 9, staff update. Mr. Story.
Mr. Mayor, as you might anticipate, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about Hurricane Helene and its impact on this community and our response to it. Mitch and Kevin and Chief Bruton and Jay and perhaps other staff will help me field questions as it relates to the activities so far. And we'll sort of share an overview of some of the things that may be of public interest associated with storm response. I'd like to start by thanking our community for a very remarkable time of positive response, I think. There were countless, too many to name, individuals that went above and beyond to help their neighbors, to look out for friends and family, to go to work that day. I am one, as most anybody here, that couldn't get out of my neighborhood if not for some neighbors who were out just as soon as the weather cleared, doing some things to get us up and moving more quickly. And so we want to always, while I'm really proud of the efforts our team made, we want to keep foremost that it's the citizens of this community that did a whole lot of the heavy lifting to get us through the storm. Also, the community was remarkably generous during those difficult times. There was a lot of support expressed not only to the city team, to the men and women of the fire department, men and women of the police department, and the men and women of public works. There was a lot of expressions of support for our utility folks, the linemen and others who got us back up, and we witnessed that, and we appreciate it. Also, there were a good many folks who paid careful attention to the requests that came their way of some of the smaller, more subtle ways to help, like staying home off the roads when the times that the power outages were worse, and being patient as we work through it. So there's a whole lot of positives that I think leads in our thinking externally, but there's also a lot I want to share about our team's performance as well. Just to give you a little sense of the scale of this, of course, you know the scale by living through it firsthand, but nearly the entire city lost power. I don't have a good statistic of the maximum power outage, but it was in the 90% of the city limits. Telecommunications were down for much of the city on the day of the storm itself.
and certain forms of telecommunication remain out to this day. You know, there's a lot of internet to the home outages that remain, but there were portions of the first day that cell service was out for much of the city. But fortunately, in comparison to our friends in North Carolina, cell service didn't stay out very long, and we were able to communicate that way. We had at least 367 tree calls, and a tree call can mean more than one tree, as you know, on any given street. There were times when, you know, you'd have 6 or 8 intertwined down in a certain location. And those 367 calls were related to those that impacted some sort of public right-of-way. So there's potentially hundreds more that were fully on private property. So the scale of that is unlike anything we have seen in recent lifetimes. There was major damage to 170 structures, and by major damage, we mean trees that hit the structures, causing structural damage of some kind. So 170 of those that we know to date. Now, we know that list could even grow as if folks had unoccupied properties that hadn't been fully inspected to the rear and things of that nature. But that's the count of this moment. In addition to that, there are 269 structures that had additional external damage, like shingles blown off the roof or trees that hit the house and bounced off without creating damage to the internal structure, electrical meters ripped off the backs of homes, and things of that nature. So in total, over 400 homes suffering some damage. We had 35 homes with flood damage of some kind, 35 structures, I should say. And then, of course, in addition to that, more with rain damage that was associated with some structural damage from some falling trees. So in comparison to other recent events, like the tornado of February 6, 2020, the volume is considerably greater, and there is no known part of the city that escaped significant damage. We'll talk more about the response in a few minutes, but just wanted to, those facts help to give you a sense of just how many of our folks are affected, in addition to power outages that affected nearly everyone. So a lot of folks that have lots of processes to work through. We learned, it was further emphasized during the past couple weeks, just the importance of different communication methods from the past. 617,000 viewings of City of Spartanburg posts on Facebook. 152,000 viewings of some of our posts on Instagram. We made 105 posts about information relating to the storm on various communication, online communication tools. Christopher and Jess, we saw that reached more people more quickly, and so we leaned into that. And 41,000 times there was some type of reaction, comment, or sharing of that information. So those are unprecedented numbers by a long, long ways for us in regard to that type of communication. Wanted to share a little bit more about sort of how we operated on those first days. There were several, most of the city facilities were operating on generator power for the first few days. And the city offices, which, we're in temporary offices, so we don't have generator backup, which was not a significant problem for us in any way because we operated out of our other facilities. Jay drew the short straw and had me work in his office, which is about the the thing, I tried to walk a mile in his shoes and think, what's the thing when your hair's on fire and you're trying to do 1,000 things at once that you don't want, and it's your boss showing up in your office. But I tried to stay out of the way and be supportive and lend a hand to those guys. But Kevin set up shop with Chief Bruton in the fire department, and they welcomed some folks from our South Church Street office facility, which had no power. And then Mitch was out in the community leading various community support, the human side of the equation activities. So I'll pause a minute and ask Mitch to share a few things about that, and then we'll talk about more aspects of storm response.
Thanks, Chris. Soon, immediately in the aftermath of what we saw Friday, Chris called on the team to consider how we provide support to our families and our community members. And in that conversation, our attention was to high-density areas of families and youth, which is mostly a lot of our multifamily sites. And so that was a thought. And we also used this time to tap into some of our relationships and our partners. So I just want to walk you through some of those moments of engagement and partnerships. It first started with Denny's. The mayor and I had conversations with Denny's as early as Friday evening about what could be done. I think most of y'all are aware that Denny's has a mobile relief, disaster relief trailer that they've activated 20, 30 times across our country. Never did we imagine that they would be activating it in Spartanburg County. Fortunately, it was in town during that time, and we were able to work with Denny's to get access to some supplies as far as food. It was activated in the county on Sunday, and then where they served over 1,700 families. And on Monday, our team got together, and I just want to take a moment, with Kim, Kathy, Jess, Marilyn, us all getting together and activating a team to respond to the call that we received from Chris, to think about those members of our team that were not in police, fire, and public works, that were frontline providing the service, other departments, finance, you name it, community development, all of these departments, community relations, came together to say, okay, what can we do? So those families were served on Monday. We soon start making calls with our partners, understanding what we could do. So I just want to highlight some of those things. Wilton Jordan and David Jordan connected us with food distributors, where we're able to get supplies shipped directly to us, to our warehouse on Henry Street, where we were offloading food and supplies, sorting them and putting them together. We made a contact with Zion Williamson's philanthropy group led by Carlos Dotson. We were able to identify 1,100 boxes of prepackaged food through Second Harvest Food Bank of Metrolina out of Salisbury, North Carolina. Made a delivery directly to us, 1,100 boxes. We were thankful to have that, but it also took a relationship with Bernie Mazik with the South Carolina Association of CDCs to get truck drivers to prioritize deliveries for us. So we had deliveries being made from grocery distributors in North Carolina to our warehouse. Our members of our team got together on several days to unpack those boxes, to sort those boxes. In that effort, we had over 2,500 interactions with families at over 11 plus multifamily sites across our city. And that was really a strong response. That went on up into the Sunday, last Sunday, not this past Sunday, where we made deliveries. And those families' appreciation for that effort was noted. In addition to that, Parks and Rec community centers came back online somewhere midweek after the storm, where we were able to open up our facilities for individuals to get showers, charge their phones, have an outlet for our young people. We served nearly 100 families and over 200 youth during that process. In addition, there were partnerships with organizations like Miracle Hill, Spartanburg County Management, where we activated the Northwest Center as a place of engagement. We work with Miracle Hill to activate the emergency shelter. Spartanburg School District 7, Ruth's Gleanings, the United Way of the Piedmont, on and on and on, the collaborative partners that work with us. And we also couldn't have done this without volunteers. I want to note the volunteers, the Divine Nine, United Methodist Church of South Carolina, ERT, USC Upstate basketball team, and again, Zion Williamson's philanthropy group, and Wofford College. These were all volunteers that came out to help us make this happen. Thank the members of council that was able to join. Such a rewarding experience to see us come together to make that possible to those families in need.
We're now focused most significantly on the debris removal aspects of cleaning up from the storm. So I wanted to share a few public updates on that. The first thing to understand is about debris removal is that this will be a long process. You know, one of the things that our team experienced in this is, you know, there's the point in the aftermath of a disaster where you're sprinting and you're sprinting and you're sprinting, and then you look around and you realize it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, you know, and we are in that phase of it. We've got a long way to go for our community to look as it did the day before the storm. And we don't know at this moment exactly how long it will take to complete the debris removal process. The further into it we get, the more we'll learn about that and be able to share some additional estimates. There's, in addition to our teams and our resources, FEMA certified contractors are working inside the city to pick up and haul away debris. You'll see different names on trucks, different trucks, the contractors from around the country that have come in. They'll be running multiple crews, 12-hour days, 7 days a week till it's done. Today there were 5 crews working. That number may be higher in the days to come, but that's 5 crews in addition to our folks. We'll be making multiple debris removal passes throughout the city. And there's 2 sort of impacts to that we want to elevate for folks. One is if you have multiple downed trees on a property, don't go to extreme lengths to bring them to the right of way now if there's already stuff at the right of way. We'll be making multiple passes, and so please don't feel like it has to be an immediate rush, and please keep the debris out of the way of mailboxes, stormwater type infrastructure, so water can get into ditches and drainage pipes, and certainly try not to add debris from your yard that would impact the flow of traffic or pedestrians. So we'll get what we can, and we'll be making multiple passes. The reason why I highlight that is also it'll be confusing to some folks, or perhaps potentially disconcerting to folks if they say, "Oh, I saw trucks hauling away debris on my street, but they didn't get to my yard." Well, it will be multiple passes throughout the community. We're working on, we're prioritizing that effort based on the volumes of debris, which are throughout the city but can vary from one street to the next, of course, and the impact on vehicle and pedestrian traffic. So there might be some very low volume streets that don't get attention as early as some higher volume streets, and that makes sense, and we hope folks can understand that. Second, point related to the prioritization is community appearance is not simply can't be our priority right now. And so things won't look as orderly as, we're focusing on volume right now. There'll be a time for focusing on orderliness, and our routine green waste collection. We're going to do our best on that front. Routine green waste collections, leaves, grass clippings, things like that. that work doesn't go away, but our focus will be on the big stuff, and so this will stretch out for a good deal of time until we get to that standard that we hope we have most falls. Crews will be working in the right-of-way. They won't go on into people's yards to collect material, so they'll be working on what's on the street edge or the right-of-way. If you are aware of folks who have needs associated with what might be on their private property, there are resources available in the community. The city and our contractors won't go work on their private property, but there are resources that we can help connect with. So check with the city website and others, and we're trying to communicate on behalf of the volunteer and charitable efforts that exist to help folks, particularly seniors on fixed incomes, to deal with some of those challenges. This effort is focused on the organic material. If you have construction or demolition debris, which there will be, y'all recall those big numbers of damaged properties. So there's going to be a lot of construction, a lot of demolition going on as well. That debris is to be handled through conventional, typical means. Contractors are well versed in those practices. And so the debris removal is focused on the organic material. We will be, just to give you a little sense of how it will work on our end, our folks and our contractors are hauling to a temporarily permitted storage location on property associated with the city's downtown airport. Material will be piled there and then ground and processed for in use in some other way as we bring in equipment to do that. The effort I'm describing applies to city streets and city right-of-way. There is a similar effort taking place outside the city limits on county roads and right-of-ways, and inside and outside the city limits on State Department of Transportation owned roads and right-of-ways. So sometimes you might have a neighborhood where one street is, one artery is a state road and the side streets are city streets. You might have different crews working those. FEMA is reimbursing 100% of this effort, so we'll be carefully monitoring it to ensure we comply with those provisions. But FEMA has been responsive to every inquiry and request we've made to date, and the reason why I mentioned that this is a reimbursed activity is because it's important for our residents to know that this is not, the pace at which we can remove debris from neighborhoods is not being constrained by city budget, typical city budget constraints that we have to balance. The only thing constraining how fast this work can get done is the availability of contracted manpower and equipment. Those are our constraints. Jay and his team acted fast in partnership with the county and some others, and thank goodness they were able to act fast because Hurricane Milton came just shortly behind Helene, and so there's a great deal of demand for those same resources that are now at work in our city. We'll be updating folks as we go about debris removal, but again, we emphasize patience, and there will be multiple crews working every day, 12 hours a day until it's done. If you don't see them on your street, they are not far away. They are spread out across the city. We are utilizing our garbage collection zones as a way to ensure that we're making equitable, fair progress across all areas of the city. A couple other things to mention that are unrelated to debris removal, and I promise I'm about done and I'll hush and we'll collectively take questions. You all were aware that FEMA conducted office hours at the downtown campus of the community college Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That was a quick effort to help folks get applications processed through that process. But they have confirmed that they will be setting up an office that will exist for several months in Spartanburg at a convenient public location. So if folks weren't able to get there Friday or Saturday, Sunday, and they have uninsured losses attributable to the storm, and they haven't been successfully navigating the online, there will be a staffed FEMA office in this community that will help them through that process. And again, we've seen a pretty remarkable level of intergovernmental cooperation. We've received outreach from county, state, and federal folks to check on needs and responses, and all levels have cooperated well. We've had a great deal of very positive communication with our infrastructure providers. Spartanburg Water and Sewer was well prepared to deal with this circumstance, and thankfully we were one of the communities who had no impacts on water or sewer service. So kudos to them and their effort. We were in regular, I don't know how many times a day, Jay and I were on the phone with Duke in the earliest days of this. They communicated well about their efforts in this overwhelming circumstance. And we continue to work with our telecommunications providers to get additional information for them and attention to some of what you see around the community. You still see some lines hanging and things of that nature. Those are telecommunication lines, and AT&T and Spectrum and others are working through that process. So they're continuing to try to get us all back online, and we look forward to that day. Folk in my house, I've got a 12-year-old daughter who's keenly interested in the internet, getting back on in our home, which we're still a ways from, I believe. So there's lots of work left to do, but we wanted to give a quick update tonight, and then take any questions you have. I think if we try to pull up on the altitude and give just a few big picture questions, we are trying to track our learnings through this process. Chief Bruton has led us through a structured emergency management response system, which includes a structured evaluation look back. That wasn't our intent tonight. It was just more of a check-in with where we are tonight, but there will be a formal process by which we digest what we learn on this. But in the big picture, we've learned a lot very positive about our community, a lot of good things about our community. We've also learned a sobering hard truth. I myself have stood at a microphone and explained that I thought one of the competitive advantages we had in upstate South Carolina was we were relatively insulated from some of the adverse aspects of a warming climate. And obviously, that's no longer be part of our regional economic development pitch, but there are plenty of other positive things that have been on display that we can take away from. And there's a whole lot of remarkable things I saw in our team. One of the great things that was emphasized over this process that we continue to celebrate and cultivate and lift up every chance we get is the collaborative spirit. Didn't hear once, heard a lot of challenging things, but I didn't hear once, that's not our job, or that's not, we department lines fade away in moments like this, and I was really proud of the team for that. And Jay and his crew, and Chief Bruton and Chief Thompson, and the countless list of folks really put that into motion, and I'm awfully grateful and proud to work alongside those guys. I've talked longer than I intended to, and we'll try to, as a team, answer any questions you have.
Chris, and I'm sure you know you'll get plenty more opportunities to talk here in just a second. But I do want to say thank you to the team, and I've expressed it and gone around to the different departments about a job unexpected not knowing, not having a playbook as to how to handle what went on a couple of weeks ago, but I saw the team go to work. I saw the team personally go to work. And man, to go see Public Works and those guys, and Shay right there with me, we went out early on, and she reminded me, Jerome, these guys are out doing all this work, trying to restore power, trying to get power up. But at the end of their 12-hour day, they may go home to a dark home, no electricity, you know, food in the refrigerator's gone. So whatever's being fed at the Public Works, and I know Jeff was on the grill, but man, just thank you. And that's just one, because I went over to see Chief Bruton guys at the fire, and it was early one morning, so they were up having breakfast, getting ready to get another call. And it just goes on and on and on. And I know we all are gonna thank them all, but I know you have some pertinent questions to Chris. But one thing that I do have, Chris, and it is Spectrum, AT&T, do we have any timeline? I know we had communications daily with Duke in trying to get power back restored, but any type timeline for Spectrum, AT&T?
Spectrum is indicating that they have, I think the last number I saw was 84% of their customers back up in the area, and that the balance should be up within 48 hours of now, so, you know, to Wednesday evening. I have to say, and this is not intended to be a criticism of the telecommunications providers, but their infrastructure for communicating that is not on par with Duke's, of course. Right. And so we do have a lot less information. A lot of the telecommunication infrastructure runs, depending on the nature of when an area was developed, runs on Duke's infrastructure, on their poles. So they had to come behind it. But in some cases, there may be more to the picture we don't know. But that's what we're hearing from them.
Okay. Council, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Chris, thank you all of Public Works that has helped us, and I'm gonna give you a great big hug, and keep the work up, keep us safe and everything. But I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I had an issue where the power box came from the house, and the citizen was looking for an electrician. So can we find that electrician on the website that you were saying the resources are there?
We have some small business guide type resources. I don't know that we have a full inventory of licensed electricians in the community. Any appropriately licensed electrician can restore. You know, there's Duke's infrastructure, and then the line that serves the house belongs to the property owner. Mm-hmm. So when those meters are pulled off, I don't know how many, Chief, do you think we had meters that were pulled off of houses? A lot. But each of those needs a licensed electrician to do. We are field permitting those at no charge. You know, we typically when you have a new service, you go through the typical building permit approval process. But in our case, we're trying to turn those around really quickly, and have over the last couple weeks, and we've field permitted at no charge all that we could find, as long as an appropriate electrician had reinstalled. But anything more I should add on that?
No, sir. Just noted, Blake Bush and his crew they have authorized that procedure, and they try to do it as streamlined as possible in order to get people back into a sense of normalcy. So they've been working diligently trying to get out after the fact.
But we can help folks find, if they hadn't been able to find somebody that's
That's what we're
responsive.
looking for, a list of
We'll try to get that
contractors.
pushed out. And I know that One Spartanburg has on their website a database of local businesses, in addition to those that would be available through other channels.
And then if a contractor, if someone who does contracting work want to be on your list, they can just go to Buddy
Yes,
to get signed up?
yes, and we'll try to push that information out as best we can to everyone so they can find it to be part of that equation.
Okay.
Yeah. Chris, Councilwoman Ludejohn, I know you have a question. Can citizens go to my Spartanburg app with some of these questions as well?
Yes.
That we still up and going pretty good?
Yes, and you can email.
If they have, if they have internet, if they have internet.
If any department can be contacted directly through our webpage or through the app.
Okay. Councilwoman Ludejohn.
Just for clarification, I know that there are a lot of homes, trees have fallen on private property. All you have to do is call a FEMA or somebody, and they will assist the owner with those trees being removed, or you're responsible for the removal yourself on the private property?
Legally, the property owner is responsible for the private property, for, if they can get that material to the right of way, we'll haul it off as part of this debris removal process. But most folks in that in those cases have been engaging private contractors to get the down trees to the public right of way, and then seeking reimbursement from either their homeowner's insurance or through FEMA. So I think Bob would tackle me if I started giving too much advice about those kind of things. But if folks are in an economic circumstance where they don't have resources to do that, or they don't have insurance or things of that nature, we want to connect them with FEMA so they can pursue reimbursement that way. And there are also some social service resources, volunteer groups and community groups, some faith-based groups and some others that are helping residents with things like that. And we can be a go-between. We don't do it directly, but we can be the communication channel.
Yeah, and that those opportunities are evolving. We just got updated on one that we're not prepared to share, but that would be, we'll get with Christopher and his team to update you on that information regarding your direct question. We're not directly involved, but there are some organizations that can assist, and we're getting that information. We'll update it. It was also noted those that don't have access, we're discussing, Mrs. Sally, about how we do that. This is a time period that we plan to lean in on community engagement, to work with our neighborhood associations to better understand the needs on the human side. We're having discussions about what that looked like. We met with a small team today, discuss what we can do using the approach that we took going directly into neighborhoods. We haven't defined that process, but we're discussing that process to address that need about those that don't have that information.
Okay, a follow-up on that. If you pay a contractor yourself for a tree to be cut down, and if that contractor got put that stuff on the street for the city to pick up, because the rule is, prior to the storm,
Right.
is that if you paid a contractor, that contractor is responsible for hauling that away. Does that still apply now with the storm debris?
No, ma'am, not in, it's because this is a declared emergency.
Okay.
We will haul that material away.
Okay.
Now, that is only related to the storm damage. You're absolutely correct. Next spring, next summer, in typical circumstances, that would be the responsibility of the homeowner to have that material hauled, if the work was done by a contractor. But in this particular case, because of the disaster declaration, we'll haul that material.
Okay, one last thing. I want to thank the city for all that you all are doing. However, I have to ask this one question.
Yes, ma'am.
However.
When are we gonna start seeing some of this removal on the south side of town? I haven't seen anything removed yet.
We have removed a lot of truckloads, and we are working to make sure that the community can trust in the fact that no area is being prioritized more over another area. We are equally distributing the crews in proportion around our garbage collection routes, if that makes sense. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there won't be a crew in one area if there's not in the other areas, but within those areas, we are trying to focus on where there's vehicle and pedestrian concerns, traffic first, right? You know, areas, there are still plenty of streets in the community where there's so much storm debris that a travel lane, you know, people have to stop and yield to oncoming traffic, that kind of thing. Those are the things that we will prioritize. So if you haven't seen them on your street yet, you will soon. And we'll try to push out as much information as we can on that front.
Thank you.
Councilman Rain, I didn't know if you were, just gotta go straight down.
Chris, yeah, I'd like to echo the comments of everybody
Yeah.
and the sentiments of everybody, thanking you and the city team. Jay, you and your folks, Chief Bruton, you and your folks, Chief Thompson, your folks, Mitch, and the team for the community outreach efforts. You know, I think in moments of crisis, you see the best in people, and in this case, I also think the best of our local government and our ability to have a direct impact on the lives of the people that we represent and that we serve. And Mayor, as you point out, many of these folks every day left their families and their concerns about their own personal property and you know, came to work on behalf of the people of Spartanburg, and we should all be very grateful for that. The other thing that comes to mind is this is a stunning example of what I talk about a lot in our meetings, and that is the core essential functions of government. You know, and so, you know, I mean, this is a, you know, unfortunately, the best example we've ever had that despite our collaboration, and our community was great, we had collaboration in all facets, and Mitch has outlined those, you know, and the work of our joint funders and their support, neighbors helping neighbors, our corporate community, Denny's, Walmart, Jordan Oil, but there's still essential functions that are ours and ours alone that we're responsible for. And so, you know, I think it's just important to keep that in mind as we think about, you know, how we look at our funding pools going forward and the decisions we make, so that we never find ourselves in a situation where we're unprepared. You know, and I think, you know, we you know, no one could have prepared for the magnitude of what we saw, and I think we acquitted ourselves more than extremely well, and in fact, excellent. But to your point, using this as a learning example so that we can make improvements, so that, you know, the next time, hopefully when we're all sitting on the couch in Florida in retirement, you know, but those can, well, the mayor, he'll head to Florida. I'll stay here. But you know, those have the learnings that we have gained from this exercise, real life exercise, that we help them learn from that as well, and that we can learn from that as a team. My underlying question there is, you know, do we have the resources we need to get the job done currently? Is there anything that you or anybody on the team need to either get the job done, or in some cases, hopefully speed up the job? You mentioned contractors, and it maybe is not an issue of funding, but an issue of availability. You know, can we work more aggressively on finding more contractors if that is a need? Or is there, you know, any other need that exists, whether it's equipment or anything that you think we need to get this job done?
We are, and if other members of the team have comments, those are certainly welcome. We are, we learned some things about our technology and our equipment and our facilities that we will be addressing. I mean, we hope there's not a next time, but there is a list of things we'll be punching through that will show up in future budgets. But as it relates to getting from where we are at this moment to when the community doesn't look like Helene came through, I really don't think there's a particular expenditure that we could make that would dramatically accelerate that. Jay's quick work alongside the county and FEMA folks have positioned us well that we think we're going to have adequate debris removal. I say adequate, there's a, it's an eye of the beholder kind of thing, how fast you do something like this. But I don't know of a way to pull more resources to that at this moment. And I think that's a fair answer.
I'll just say one thing. So, to your point, so equipment, right? We're still waiting for equipment we ordered from 21. That's the issue that we're having from talking to these folks here too. It's just the availability of trucks and the availability of people to handle those areas. When you see these trucks here, you're gonna see they're huge. 60, just give it a scale of contrast. Our utilities trucks are 30 cubic yards, and they're huge or big. These are 60 cubic yard trucks as well, they call it a knuckle boom, so it's self-contained. The only issue with, and I asked a question like, hey, about dump trucks, and they were like, you just can't run enough. As far as the amount of material on the roads, you can't, by the time you do a route on there, you're not really saving. All you're really doing is kind of small, you're doing the smaller piles, but the economy of scale is the larger footprint of these contractors, and that's what they do. And to Chris's point, talking to Travis Brown, Public Works Director with the county, I think we positioned ourselves, we're not saying we'd like to be in this position, but as far as other communities, we're in a pretty advantageable position right now, because we do have them cemented in with us and not going to other jurisdictions. Western North Carolina really hadn't even started.
Yeah.
Those things. So, but as far as, we will let you know as far as material wise and stuff like that. But it all comes down to one thing. We've got a lot of material, right? We've got a lot of machines, people. Eventually it's gonna come down.
Well, my personal belief is we shouldn't let the bureaucratic red tape interfere with us getting what our people on our city team need and what our citizens need. I've heard from some people about 24-hour cleanups, like somebody said Greenville is doing a 24-hour cleanup. I don't know what that would look like exactly, and I imagine it would create disruptions in many of our neighborhoods. But obviously, we're staging our crews, the 5 current plus our city team, and hopefully more to work in rolling waves so that we have coverage almost, every daylight hour.
Yeah, and they are, 7 to 7 is the default, and every participant in the process, particularly the contracted folks, have every financial incentive to move through the city as fast as possible, because that's their hope of being able to get to Florida or to Asheville or somewhere that is still worse and have that next engagement. So I really do believe we're, turning over every resource that we can to move it as quickly as possible, but we will need folks' patience.
And even if it would require an emergency session to get something you need done, I would strongly be in favor of that. Then my only other question is, I've heard from people related to some of our busier thoroughfares and either power poles that are down or have not been repaired, in some cases interfering with the roadway. There are a couple on Main Street, for example, that have proved problematic, particularly as traffic flows on those major thoroughfares seem to have increased during the post-storm days. And I assume that is the responsibility of Duke Power, but it seems like, somebody could pick up the wood and move the wire over safely and get it out of the road without requiring a Duke ticket order, but that's just my ignorance, I'm sure.
No, I think there's a whole lot of that follow-up work that is, well, the telecommunications providers are still working to restore service to about 20% of our folks, but even on the power side where it's been restored, that doesn't mean it's done. It just means it's connected. And so they prioritized getting power back on. We've prioritized getting signals up, but signal timing and synchronization is not back to where it needs to be, right? And where it was before the storm. So there's a lot of coming back, multiple passes on multiple fronts to do that. And so certainly and I'm familiar with the Main Street situation you mentioned. We're working to push on the ways we can on that, but there'll be other points about that, and there'll also be some things that were damaged that haven't really been fully the damage hasn't been fully realized yet, like the evaluation of our stormwater infrastructure. I'm certain we're going to find other culverts that are washed out underneath and some other things like that over the coming weeks and months. So folks are still encouraged to communicate with us, just like about that situation. There's a whole lot that we're aware of and punching through, but we don't want to ever presume that we are aware of all of it. So I encourage you to communicate and folks to let us know through those channels we've discussed, and we'll be working on it. We have I don't know how many total signals that will need to be fully rebuilt. One on Main Street that I know is in your district that's going to be a entirely new reconstruction of that traffic signal, and so there'll be some equipment sourcing things that we'll be working through on
And
that.
as we go through that process, I mean, is that an opportunity to, maybe make an improvement that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to make?
Yep. We'll try to have eyes wide open on all of those opportunities. Never waste a crisis, right?
Councilwoman Smith. Oh, go, Chief.
I know you made the comment about down lines, lines across the street, maybe having to move. The encouraging factor there is that we never want anyone who is untrained or cannot recognize whether or not a line is live or not to approach a line and move it. Although that line, you may have power still restored, there may be backfeed on a line that's down. So if there is a line down, please encourage them to call versus taking action on themselves. We have several lines that are down. We have several intersections that's open that's open, but as you said, poles are still down. I'm sure that the safety factor here, if Chief Thompson was here, he would say, have our citizens slow down to ensure that they're able to navigate through those intersections in order to move to where they need to be safely and quickly.
Thought you were gonna ask for a new truck.
He's still waiting on the one from 21.
Councilwoman Smith.
Yeah, echo everything that's been said, and I'm very glad to hear that there will be an evaluation for us to be able to learn how we can improve some of these processes. I had the opportunity to hear a presentation from someone from the South Carolina Office of Resiliency this week and was talking to Kevin about it. I kind of chuckled to myself that the reason why our comprehensive plan was delayed for so long was because we had to go back and put in that plan for resilience. And so as we're going to be approaching the rezoning and trying to find a consultant to work with that, I imagine that we will be taking this event into consideration when we think about zoning and watershed and flooding, and because like you said, we hope this is a one-time, but I don't think we can rely on that, and we certainly shouldn't plan on that. So that's just a comment, but I think we all quickly learned that a lot of people do not know how to drive when a intersection is down. I live right in between 29 and Woodland Heights and did not get on the road for several days because all day long I could hear a crash and then the sirens, crash and then the sirens. Do we have any data on how many collisions there were at intersections that did not have power?
We don't have full data on that yet. There's a whole lot of data collection that will be part of the end game on this that we don't yet have, in part because in the earliest times, telecommunication systems and computer networks were down for a while. Mm-hmm. So before we want to make sure we went back and caught the occurrences during those times that had to be manually reported the old-fashioned way, that we have all of that put together. But yes, there were some collisions, and we will break down the location and what connection it had to the weather events and the infrastructure, and that'll be part of what we unpack going forward.
See, I think that can help us prioritize which ones we put generators to. I know I texted you several times about the 29 and Briarwood one. To Ruth's point, and just want you to confirm it for the record, lots of trees down, and I've heard lots of questions and chatter on Nextdoor and Facebook. If your neighbor's tree that used to be on their property falls now on your property, it is now your responsibility to, okay. Will you clarify that for us?
I'll take a step.
Bob's a tree log.
Bob, will you turn your mic on so that this can be captured? Yeah.
My recommendation would be if a tree has fallen on your house and you think it's your neighbor's, first thing to do is call your insurance company and let them know what's happened. Then I think you need to contact your neighbor and their insurance company and file a claim with their insurance company because they have liability insurance on their property for damage caused. That's what I would start with. After you've done those two things, then you need to start looking at alternative ways to get reimbursed. FEMA, neighborhood associations, Christmas in Action, volunteer groups. But I think you need to immediately contact your insurance company and the neighbor that you believe owned the tree before it fell on you and file a claim with both of them so you can start the process.
What if there's no damage to a structure? It just falls and is now in your backyard.
I still think that the responsibility, and I don't know what the insurance companies will say. They may deny the claim, but I would file a claim with my neighbor's insurance and tell them you'd like them to clean up their tree from your property because that's why they have property liability insurance.
Does that answer the question of who's legally responsible at the end of the day?
Everybody who owns property is legally responsible for that damage that causes. If my car falls on your house, if my tree falls on your house, if my kid's baseball goes through your house, I'm responsible for the damage I've caused to your house. So, again, you may end up in a claim challenge with the insurance company, but the law is that people are responsible for the property they own and the damage it causes.
That's different than what I've heard.
And again, you may be hearing that from insurance companies. And if people get a denial from an insurance company, I suggest they call somebody and get some legal advice.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be my
All right.
advice if you.
Question from Councilman Brown.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to reiterate to staff, you all did an incredible job during a very unprecedented time. I have a lot of friends that live in Western North Carolina, and, I really think, we did have it bad, but hearing some of the stories and things that some of the people that are dear to me have witnessed and are continuing to experience is something that will change their lives forever. So not only our community, but the folks and our neighbors in Western North Carolina continue to keep in my thoughts and prayers. A couple questions, Chris. So the tree, another tree question. A lot of trees fell. Some are still hanging on by a thread. So if there is a tree, for example, that might be in someone's property, maybe in that front line of their property, but could potentially fall into the street, that could, is a public safety risk, what should someone do in that instance?
We would definitely appreciate them letting us know that they're concerned about something falling into the public right away, right? And then we can take a look at that situation and figure it out. And certainly if it's in the right of way, we can remove it. If it, we'll work through a triage process to figure out what we can do to avoid any safety impacts. And if it's neighbor to neighbor, this is one of those times where I know everybody's been under stress for a couple of weeks, but we just need to encourage as much communication as we possibly can between neighbors to help with those kind of things. I think there's the best way forward is to communicate, but let us know, and we'll take a look at those addresses and circumstances. If it's in a SCDOT right away, they have been very responsive to trying to get those situations addressed.
Okay. And then my other question, I've been asked to have a few folks who have had almost total losses to their homes or structural damage, which may take, 6 months to a year to repair. And I had reached out to you at one point. I don't think we got an answer on it, but I had questions, with the state of our real estate availability in homes, for sale, et cetera. There's been questions, even though it's as part of our code now, you can't have sort of temporary living structures. But in the events of something like this, if a home is, 6 to 8 months to repair, the family's not been able to find somewhere else to go. They obviously want them to continue to stay in the schools that the children are in. Have we looked at that at all? What sort of leeway might we consider for families who might be displaced and want to, kind of stay close to home if possible?
We are looking at that. A big factor in that equation is what the property insurer would allow for that period of time, what they would pay for associated with that. So that's one factor in addition to city codes. City codes currently don't allow anyone to reside in a temporary structure. All structures need to have water, sewer connections, electrical connections, things like that to be habitable. So any kind of temporary structure typically doesn't do that. But we do have a team that's looking into that. I just don't have an answer right now as to whether or not we think we could make a emergency-based exception. Might be able to.
And one last question, and this doesn't necessarily pertain to, falling within the city's responsibility, but just kind of as we're thinking ahead, the potential for, future, Lord knows, I hope we never see anything like this in our lifetime again, but you just never know. One of the challenges that I witnessed a lot of is not only folks without power, no communication, ways to communicate, phones, cable, et cetera. Spartanburg Water has a number of the ice house structures that sit, by themselves across the city. As we're looking towards the future, you couldn't find ice anywhere. So the ability to salvage what groceries you had, et cetera, was very, very small. But as we look towards the future, considering, backup generators for these types of, for that type of equipment, there were so many folks who couldn't find ice. I mean, I think I got more Ring, notifications on my, Ring app. Can we find ice? Can we find? And no one could find it. And, it was unfortunate because I think things like that make things a little bit easier. So just, as you're talking about planning ahead for future potential catastrophic storms, might be something that we might want to have conversations with them about.
I thought about you because you did send out the text about the ice machines. And it's a very good idea to have generators, at least at a few that we could all locate. And I'll definitely be talking with Guy at Spartanburg Water about it. Councilwoman Littlejohn.
Yeah. One last question, Chris. On Marion Avenue, because there are at least 3 to 4 homes that the power lines, and I know that they are deactivated right now because of them being down, but there are about 3 or 4 homes that these lines are going right across their porches, you know, go right in front. And I would think that the power company would be concerned that if somebody fell and got hurt on these things, they could be sued, you know, because they're going right across their porches. I just cannot believe that they have not been out there because they try to take these things up.
And to comment on that situation, I'd have to know whether it was Duke's line or the service line to the house.
There are several lines. I know that there's one is Duke, and there's some service lines going through there, because Spectrum has some lines going through there. I don't even want to call the name Spectrum. But anyway, Spectrum has some lines going through there as well. But I would think that they would be concerned about that.
Well, yes, ma'am, and I think if it's a situation where the line from Duke's line to the house was taken down.
No, the lines have come down because the trees knocked these lines down. And they are just going across, and you have to step across the lines in order to get into the person's house.
Okay, well, if you help me with those addresses, we'll follow
Oh,
up
I'll be
tomorrow.
glad to give you those
Yes, ma'am.
addresses.
Marion Avenue, Marion
Marion
Avenue.
Avenue. Mhm.
The houses, if you're going towards Union Street on the right side.
If you're coming from Mount Moriah, because if you're coming up, it would be on the right
On the right side.
side.
We'll see what we can learn about
Okay.
whose lines they are and whatnot, so.
Good. Yes, sir.
One thing, Chris, just thinking back through what we did, and I thought super appreciative of all staff did. The main thing I heard from neighbors that was different than in a non-crisis situation was they wanted to see us out, the city, fire, police, the presence, and that was, Chief Bruton, your guys did a great job. Within an hour, there was 3 of them on foot on our street. I mean, we were totally blocked in, but they had climbed over the trees and they were checking on damage or for emergencies. But even now, the more we can do, just have a presence patrols with police, fire, whoever, public works, so that people see us. I think that helps. And we did that pretty well, I thought, but that was the main, as I think about today, even 2 weeks later, or 2.5 weeks later, continuing to be out there. And I know that people have to go to calls and stuff like that, but to the extent we can be out in the neighborhoods, I think that's helpful.
And one of the things, I mean, yes, sir, absolutely, 100% agree. One of the things that a lot of folks may not be as cognizant of is that when there are these kind of incidents that disrupt things, the resources we have for routine patrol, like police patrol,
Right, go
preventive
down.
patrol, go down because we got more calls for service
Exactly, I get that.
and there are certain types of police calls that increase during times like this. You know, people, stress and calls to police, you know, they track. And the more stress there is in a community, the more likely that our officers are on call response as opposed to that. But we did try to do that, and we definitely will try to be as visible on all fronts as we can
I
be.
mean, even the fact that we had on our cul-de-sac, 3 firemen just going on foot around on Friday, I don't know how long after, maybe it was 2 hours after, but that meant a lot to people. They
Absolutely.
weren't, I don't know what they were doing, but they were checking for damage or checking for, maybe they had gotten a call, but they were on foot.
Well, most of police and fire spent most of that Friday getting people out of houses that were, you know, inaccessible conventionally, literally helping people get out. And so I know that gets kind of lost. Here we are, 16 or 17 days afterwards, but that first day, there were a whole lot of very scared people. And one of the things that we haven't said tonight that I think deserves to be said is that we as a community, as a city, were very fortunate in regard to loss of life in this circumstance. I mean, extraordinarily fortunate that we didn't experience more with the number of damaged structures we had and that kind of thing. We were really lucky that the numbers weren't higher of loss of life. So.
Good. Any other questions? Good. Thank you, Chris.
I just want to magnify one more point, and then I promise I'll sit down and hush. The kind of things that I observed about our team, and I think a couple of you pointed to this, but I just wanted to blow it up a little bit because it was the most acute observation I had about the men and women that served the city during this time. Is the public works guys, the police officers, the firefighters, the men and women of those core service functions are the same men and women that when something goes wrong in their circles, they get the call no matter what, right? I'm not talking about their work calls. It's like, you know, everybody likes to have in their church and in their family and their extended, you know, group of friends, somebody who knows how to deal with problems when stuff goes wrong. And that's the folks who choose firefighting and policing and working in public works. And so the thing that most troubled me is that I knew when it was 7 or 8 o'clock at night and they had, you know, 12 hours in, is that they wanted to be able to go take care of their own families and their in-laws and their parents and that kind of thing, and get their trees out of their yards and all that kind of stuff, and couldn't because they were doing their jobs. And so that aspect of, you know, often the case, like during the tornado, we were able to bring resources from across the region to the very localized area that was hit by the tornado. Well, there's not one member of the city team or any of the infrastructure folks that was involved in responses that didn't have something on the home front they were dealing with. Yeah. So just really grateful that they didn't lose focus on that.
Good.
And thanks for all your time.
Yeah, it was worth the last comment. Good. Yeah. Thank you, Chris, again, and thanks to the team. We're going to go with council updates. Councilwoman Smith.
Stay within my 2 minutes.
We're the same routine.
There's so much to say over the last 3 weeks, but I just want to use this time again to really thank our staff and our team. I got to work with Mitch and a group of our folks from, you were right, Mitch, from finance, Parks and Rec, community engagement, showed up and they're stacking boxes, had an incredible process, was able to deliver some meals that Kathy and her team had put together, stopped by some of the different departments and thanked our folks. And none of them were complaining. Most of them, if they weren't smiling, they had a look of focus and of dedication. And just so very proud. We did see neighbors helping neighbors. I met new neighbors that lived just 5 houses down. And as Jamie already said tonight, we saw some of the best of people, all sorts of people come out in times like this. And I really feel like part of our job as council is to protect our staff and support our staff, whether that's with approving the budgets that y'all ask for, whether that's knowing when to stay out of the way and when to get engaged, whether that's bringing cakes or donuts by, whatever we can do to encourage and support y'all. And to do the job in the face of hardship and in the barrage of sometimes negative comments that we've experienced these last 2 weeks for people who work for the government. It makes me really angry when other elected officials from our county undermine the good and important work that folks from the government are doing. We live and work within a nested ecological system of the city and the county and the federal government, and we take the help where we get it, whether it's from a perceived rival or not. And I don't want any of the work that y'all have done to feel undermined by some of the negative misinformation and things that have been said by some of our other elected people out there. So just thank you for what you've been doing. I think it's our job to speak up when we see some of that happening, even if it's just on principle. So thanks again.
Thank you, Councilman Foreman.
Yeah, Mayor, I really don't have anything else to add other than what I said earlier. But it does strike me that, you know, there's never been a time where I live more than in the weeks after that terrible storm, and just so proud of everybody in our community for the response.
Good call. Councilman Brown.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything really to add, just to, you know, really just super proud of you guys. I know there's still a lot of work ahead as well, so any way that we can be a support to you all, Chris, you and your team. Also want to give a shout out to Chris and Jess for their extensive communication skills throughout this. You know, I know oftentimes, you know, folks didn't have internet, but if you were roaming and those, you know, was able to get some sort of messages, and often, you know, I would get text messages, where can I find this? What can I do with this? And you guys were great in getting back to me on those things. It allowed me to, you know, share what I could onto, you know, my city council's Facebook page for people to get information. One of which was, you know, I'd asked you to share the mobile bus. You know, there were a lot of doctor's offices that were closed, still without power for quite some time. And though we provide health care to the uninsured, we also partner with VCOM. And so they brought because we had some damage in the bottom floor of our building, and we had to, you know, weren't able to really get up and running because we were without power and internet for a little bit as well. And but having their partnership and being able to have that bus on site, not only were folks who aren't necessarily our patients able to come and get to be seen by a doctor if they needed, so that they could get prescriptions that they needed, but they also were able to get a free meal. So that was, you know, they had food trucks on site and offered those for folks that were being seen. And then, I don't know, what is it, the Pinguinos? It's like a shaved ice thing. I've never had it. I'm trying to fit in a wedding dress in less than 30 days. But, you know, it was kind of nice because people were just walking the streets and just kind of turning in. They're like, can we? We're like, yeah, go ahead. So it was just really nice to see everyone come together for that. So thank you all.
Councilman Rain.
Yeah, I mean, everyone said a lot that I agree with, but wanted to emphasize, the appreciation of just the community members. I saw folks checking on the elderly, clearing trees, getting people unstuck from their houses, feeding meals to each other. So a great example of wonderful acts of neighborliness. And then also, again, wanted to re-thank our city team, our front-facing city team, the staff, the firemen, police, public works. I know that was a lot, and it didn't end. It wasn't like a 24-hour thing. It's still going, and it will continue to go. But thank you for your efforts and what you guys are doing. And then finally, wanted to thank the businesses that got open quickly, that were able to find a way to source generators to get people gas, or get people food, or people a place to stay. I thought there was a lot of really creative efforts on behalf of the business community to get things open creatively and quickly.
Awesome. Councilwoman Ludejohn.
Congratulations, Mr. CEO. I lived in Florida for 15 years, and I can tell you, I have never seen what I have experienced here in Spartanburg. 'Cause we didn't have granddaddy oak trees, 'cause we had palm trees, 'cause so they were not destroying homes the way that they are here. I am grateful to our city team. You all have been wonderful, and Mitch Kennedy, I have to say this, I have to point this out. One of my constituents a tree fell on his house prior to the storm and messed up the house. Well, then the storm came along and major damage is done. He's not going to be able to stay in there up until a lot of work is done. It is probably going to be condemned. He didn't have any place to go, and we were trying to get him someplace. And I am grateful to Mitch. I called Mitch and I said, I am trying to get him someplace because he doesn't have any place to really go, and we were trying everything. Mitch made a phone call to United Way with his contact, and he contacted me today because to let me know that he has a place to go now temporarily. So thank you very much. I mean, we have a wonderful city team, and I am always bragging on you all. I just love our city team. I just want our street cleaned up now.
You're gonna have one for you.
No. I want to congratulate Mrs. Willa Reeder. She has been recognized as Ingles' amazing teacher for the month of October. So, because she's a wonderful teacher, I would love to have a child in her class, because she's a wonderful teacher. So, I have thanked the teacher. Oh, the Girl Scouts, Boots and Pearls, are going to have that Boots and Pearls event on October the 17th, because this Thursday coming is going to be at the AC Hotel. So I would love for you all to go online, because you can purchase a ticket to come. Got to go to gssc-mm.org. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, good afternoon again. I want to say thank you all for all the hard work you have done and still doing. I want to thank my neighbors who actually helped me to get out of my driveway. One of my neighbors, like Megan, I did not even know, but they came and they pulled together and we got it solved, not only on my house, but 3 or 4 more homes. So thanking just the team here for what they're doing. Let's thank each other's neighbors for what they have done for us as well. Because one of the sermons that my new minister says, if we love God, we'll love ourselves, we can love our neighbors. So with that, with this storm, that's what we have done. We have really shown this. I have 2 things I want to announce. On this weekend, Silver Hill Memorial United Methodist Church will be celebrating, after Helene, our 155th anniversary. On Sunday, we're packing the pews, and if you have nowhere else to go at 10 o'clock, I want to see you at Silver Hill Memorial United Methodist Church at 778 John B. White Boulevard. My pew is down front, and that's where I want you to come, where I'm sitting. Now, last but not least, on next Thursday, there will be a book signing for the North of Maine at Chapman Cultural Center at 5:30. It's free, so please come out. It talks about behind the college. Which one of you?
Back of the college.
Back of the college.
Behind the college, back of the college.
Back of the college. And it has a lot of history about Silver Hill in that book. So please come out and purchase the book, read it. It's fantastic. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Important announcement, we will counsel Miles with the mayor for this coming Saturday. I think it's important that we continue the cleanup from the hurricane. I know Piles is doing something on the trails, and I just thought it was fitting that to get out for all of the participation that we have during Miles with the mayor, to get out and help your neighbors, help in your neighborhood, help your neighbors, and that's just one thing. We have not counseled one at all up until this point. We did something every month since I've been in office, and that was just amazing that we could have that opportunity. So to all the faithful ones that participate. And we didn't have Jamie to give us a route. You know, he was late on getting it to us. No, but really, we're gonna counsel and just about the resilience. Now, you can still walk on this coming Wednesday, October the 16th. The mayor's committees for disabilities will have the walk and roll with the disability kids in the school, Spartanburg County School District, as well as Union School District and Cherokee County will walk and roll through North Church Street, starting at Morgan Square, walking down to the auditorium, and then having an after party over at Spartanburg High School. That is this coming Wednesday, starting at 9:00 a.m. Piles will have a cleanup as well this weekend on the trails. Ned didn't get back to me as to where they would actually be cleaning, but look on their website if you would like to participate in any cleanup from the storm. One last parting piece. I was fortunate enough to meet the president, President Biden, when he came to the upstate. He, myself, along with Mayor Knox from Greenville and the Mayor Esther out of Asheville, along with the Governor of North Carolina, our Governor McMasters, Lindsey Graham, Timmons, and a few others. And to sit and talk, Mayor Knox and Mayor Esther and I was in a vehicle together. Mayor Knox and I, of course, talking about power, getting the power back, you know, the gas and getting things back to order. But when we sat and talked to Mayor Esther, and I have a hard time pronouncing her last name, so she talked about people that, you know, body counts. She talked about recovering cities, neighborhoods. She talked about folks that haven't been reported in. I mean, the devastation in Asheville, guys, it will stay with me forever, just hearing her conversation. So we are blessed in Spartanburg. We're very thankful to get through this storm, and along with all the help from the team, but as they always say, it could be a lot worse. And trust me when I say Asheville is a lot worse. If you mentioned you got friends up there, and I'm sure other folks do too, Asheville is a lot worse. So when we get things back to normal here, I would love for us to have an effort in helping Asheville. Chris actually mentioned it at a staff meeting. He wished we could, at that point, already go help Asheville, because they're gonna need it. They're gonna need it. We still do, and we'll get things cleared out. But I just think about Asheville, and I said one last thing, but one last thing. Shay and I, she's my road dog in the storms. We rode around, and we were on Union Street, and again, this was probably Saturday early. We wanted to get off Union Street and go over to Spartanburg High School. Had power, we can check our internet and check emails and all that. So we cut through Converse Heights. Couldn't get on Main Street. The devastation. Couldn't make it to Main Street. We ended up back over on Collins. Rode through the housing, Collins Park. Bunch of kids out. I'm like, man, they're over here fighting. We ride up because, you know, Spartanburg High School kids, we got to know them. They're out there playing football. Hadn't seen that in I don't know how many years, Rob. Kids in the middle throwing the football, you know, so I had to get out and show my quarterback skills. But I wasn't tackling anybody. But man, I mean, it shows the resilience. It shows what Spartanburg is all about. And Jamie, exactly what you said, man. Love where you live. It just means so much. So thank you all for coming out, and I know we still have a long way to go. Hopefully you got some information that you can take back to your neighborhood, take back to your, take back with you, and that is help. So thank you all for joining us, and I will take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion, we move into executive session.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any that oppose?
You know, one thing I forgot to say in my public comment, one thing I did learn, and we're going, and